I'll boil it down here to the nuts and bolts for you. The worst part of last night's Royal Rumble was that I was really looking forward to the show. You heard me talk about this. You heard me talk about how on paper this looked like a pretty solid card, and I was really looking forward to both championship matches and, of course, the Royal Rumble matches. It's always fun to count down and see who comes out and follow along and see what little stories are told in these matches. And when it was over, I was left very underwhelmed. I was left very disappointed. Not even by the finishes. And I know there's a lot of people who are very upset that they gave the Rumble wins to two part-timers again instead of trying to put somebody over. And I've already talked about this. I've addressed the fact that this is a fallacy. There is this fallacy that the Royal Rumble is used or is supposed to be used to put over a new talent. When the Royal Rumble, in fact, there have been very few years. There have been a few, but there have been very few years where the Rumble has been used for that purpose. That is not traditionally what the Royal Rumble is for. You have had a lot of big names who didn't necessarily need the rub go into the Royal Rumble and win because they were going to the main event of WrestleMania. There was a story with that WWE was trying to tell. Right? Steve Austin went in there and won 3 Royal Rumbles. We've had Undertaker win the Royal Rumble when he didn't really have to, but he did anyway. John Cena, Randy Orton. But we can go up and down the list here. But people in their minds have it that, well, the Royal Rumble is supposed to be used for this. It's rarely been used for that purpose. So I don't get disappointed so much in that anymore. If anything, you could say, well, maybe that's what King of the Ring is for. And we all know how much emphasis they put on King of the Ring. So it wasn't even the finishes, like who won, that bothered me. It played out exactly the way that I predicted it would, especially on the men's side. It was how goddamn boring it all was. Especially that main event. The best analogy that I can use is that WWE, they got to their planned destination. It got to where it needed to go heading into WrestleMania. But the ride was very long and very boring. That is how the 2022 Royal Rumble will be remembered. They got to where they needed to go with the people they put over, but my God, was the ride there a fucking bore. One of the absolute worst Royal Rumble matches that I have ever seen. I didn't say the worst, but one of the worst Royal Rumble matches I've seen. There are some Rumbles that have made me angry with the way they've booked the matches and the finishes. I wouldn't even say this one made me angry. This one didn't really make me feel much of anything other than just apathy. That's almost as bad. That's almost as bad as anger. It was just completely lifeless. Predictable? Absolutely. But predictable does not always mean bad. This was bad. There was no story threaded throughout the match. It was all about Brock Lesnar coming out after being screwed by Paul Heyman out of the WWE title earlier in the night, coming back, entering the Rumble, and winning the match. And since he came out at number 30, they felt they didn't really need to even try, it felt like. They threw Johnny Knoxville in there to do some spots. They threw Bad Bunny in there to do some spots. At least he does them well. I'll give him that. Bad Bunny does not look bad when he's in there doing those spots. He and Shane McMahon were the big surprises outside of Lesnar. Those are your two big surprises in the men's Royal Rumble match. It was all very dull. The crowd didn't seem to care for much of it either, which made it even worse. You know, sometimes a hot, enthusiastic crowd can make a difference, but you didn't have that last night. That's for sure. But 20 years later, Paul Heyman screws Brock Lesnar out of the WWE Championship once again. It was 20 years ago with the Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden that Paul Heyman did this very thing, and Brock Lesnar fell for it again last night. Did I call that one or what? Right after Brock won that title and they announced the Lashley match, I said Lashley wins the title, Heyman and the Bloodline screw Brock Lesnar, Brock comes back out, he wins the Royal Rumble. That is how you get back to Lesnar and Reigns at WrestleMania. At least the people who won both Royal Rumble matches this year will actually be main eventing WrestleMania, as the Rumble winners are supposed to. That's probably the best thing I could say about it. You're getting two people going to WrestleMania who are going to headline night 1 and night 2. But the Brock Lesnar-Bobby Lashley singles match is the match that I was most looking forward to on this card. I've been looking forward to this match for a very long time. Didn't think it was going to happen. Was losing hope that they were ever going to put these two in the ring together. And finally, we got the match last night. And even that match, I thought was a disappointment. But Bobby had to win. If you saw the build-up to this match on TV in the weeks leading up to this, Bobby Lashley had to win this match. He didn't win strong. I never expected him to go over clean, but he won. He is now the WWE Champion for the second time, and that's what matters. Now, who he faces at WrestleMania depends a lot, I think, on the status of Seth Rollins going forward. Because the issue with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins does not appear to be over. The best thing on the show last night, if the main event was the worst, the best thing on the show last night was the opening match. Roman Reigns defending the Universal title against Seth Rollins. Seth coming out in the Shield gear to the old Shield theme music, coming through the crowd, playing mind games with Roman, trying to get in his head, trying to fuck with his mind. I thought that was great. I thought it told a great story, and I thought the action in the match was really good. It was a really fun, really good match between those two. I know a lot of people were very sour on the cheap DQ finish. That didn't bother me too much because I enjoyed the match and because I didn't want them taking that title yet off Roman. It keeps the championship on Roman a little bit longer heading into WrestleMania. I think that's the right move to make. But when this match was over, it didn't feel to me like this issue between the two of them is over. Now, they could blow it off in Saudi Arabia at the Chamber pay-per-view next month. But I'm not so sure that you can't include Seth Rollins in this Universal title picture even heading into WrestleMania. Now, Big E is officially back on the SmackDown roster. That's according to the announcers, the way they were talking on SmackDown on Friday night. The language they were using, they used the word officially a couple of different times. The announcers did. Megan Morant, the backstage interviewer, said, what does it feel like to officially be back on SmackDown? So it appears that Big E is back on SmackDown without any fanfare at all. He's just back. He's back with Kofi Kingston. The New Day is reunited. The last match Big E had on Raw was a loss to Seth Rollins. And Big E right now, boy, when he came out in that Royal Rumble match, I know that he was one of the favorites, I think, in the odds and the betting odds, and a lot of people were hoping maybe they would see Big E get a big win after the way he got fucked at day one. I felt bad for the guy. Maybe Big E is going to win the Royal Rumble. I never thought there was any realistic shot of that happening. But when he came out last night and made his entrance, and he was a late entrant in that Royal Rumble match, nobody cared. And this is part of the problem. So many guys came out in that Rumble match last night who just didn't feel special. They didn't really feel like much of a star. Big E was lumped into that category, and Big E up until a few weeks ago was the WWE champion. And he came out and he felt like just some random undercard guy. There was no excitement. Oh, it's Big E. He might actually win. Nobody seemed to care. Big E feels as cold as a block of ice right now. And I do believe that the Big E singles push is now over. Even if he is still on Raw, you've got Seth Rollins, you've got AJ Styles. I mean, there are names that are far more likely, I think, to get the shot at Bobby Lashley than Big E. But based on what they said on Friday, he may not even be on Raw anymore, so it doesn't really matter. According to WrestleVotes, WWE doesn't have any plans locked in whatsoever for the WWE Championship. The WWE title is the secondary title in this company. You know, whatever title Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar are holding, that is going to be the top title. The WWE title has been and will continue to play second fiddle. So they haven't even given any thought to what they're going to do with the WWE Championship. They'll figure it out later. You would think being so close to WrestleMania, they would have this figured out already. But apparently they don't know yet. Kofi Kingston was another story in the Rumble last night. It was a story because he went for his annual Rumble save spot where he gets eliminated, but not really. And how is Kofi going to find his way back in the ring? Well, the streak is over. Because last night, Kofi Kingston botched the Rumble save spot. He got eliminated when he wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to work some spots with Big E later in the match. Obviously, that did not happen. And the way they shot it, there was no way out of it. If they didn't show his feet touching the floor as the spot happened, they might have been able to wiggle their way out of it and not show a replay. But the camera was right on him. There was no way around it. You just could not keep him in the match. So they had no choice but to eliminate him. That spot is so played out. Whether it's Kofi, we've seen Dolph, we've seen Naomi do it in the Women's Rumble in the past. I mean, she kind of tried to do it last night. It has become Kofi's thing. Many years ago, it became Kofi's thing, and it was kind of cute at first. He would find different clever ways to stay in the match. But it became this annual thing. It's like, we have to do the contrived, how will he get back in the ring spot? I hope I don't see that spot again for at least another 10 years. They need to bury that 6 feet under and leave it there. Let it ferment under the dirt. And maybe when they bring it back years from now, it'll actually feel special again. But it was bound to happen. You get cute one too many times, and eventually it's going to come back to bite you on the ass. And that's what happened to Kofi Kingston last night. But Bad Bunny and Shane McMahon, they were among the last names in the ring for the men's Royal Rumble match. They were among the final names in the ring vying for a championship match in the main event of WrestleMania. But they had Bad Bunny in there at the very end. They had Shane McMahon in there at the very end. You want to have him in the match, that's fine. But it's what I mean when I say there was no real drama to any of it. They did have the match come down to Lesnar and McIntyre. They were playing off their last interaction in the Rumble 2 years ago when Drew eliminated Brock. This time it was Brock eliminating Drew. Now, I don't know how many of you saw the post-show promo, Drew McIntyre with him in the back. They put it up on their WWE YouTube channel. First of all, he said things are far from over with him and Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin, which just made me physically ill hearing that. But more interesting than that, he talked about wanting to get the WrestleMania moment that he was deprived of. When he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 36, he did it in an empty warehouse. He did not have that WrestleMania moment in front of a large crowd, right, where he won the championship. He was in front of a crowd last year and he lost. Fair and square, clean. Lost to Bobby Lashley. So him talking about wanting to still get that moment, there's still time between now and WrestleMania. There's at least a chance that they might want to try to work Drew McIntyre into the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar match, which I'm not really feeling that. I would much rather, if they're going to put somebody in there, and I'm never really hot on the idea of a multi-man match in the main event of WrestleMania. I mean, they've done it a few times, but I'd rather it be one-on-one. But if they're going to do a triple threat, honestly, I would rather it be someone like Rollins than McIntyre in that match. But they're kind of leaving that open as a possibility, it looks like, just based on how he was talking. By the way, earlier in the day, Mustafa Ali, who is still employed by WWE, again, they have not released him from his contract despite his release request, he tweeted, "No, I would not like to be in the Rumble. I would like my release." So they must have gone to him and said, "Hey, we want you in the Rumble, or would you like to be in the Rumble?" And he was like, "No, actually, I would like my release papers." I think he'll be waiting a little longer for that. Now, over on the women's side, the worst kept secret in wrestling, Ronda Rousey, the return of Rowdy Ronda Rousey in the Royal Rumble match. We knew she was going to be back. We just didn't know if she would be in the Rumble, or would she be showing up after the Rumble? Would she be showing up after Becky Lynch's match to confront her? We didn't know. But we knew she would be there. We knew she would have some involvement. Ronda came back in the Rumble. She was a late entrant. She is back, by the way, on a 1-year contract. This is not a quick one and done, type of thing. I don't know that she'll be on television every week. I don't even think she should be. But like her last deal where she debuted at WrestleMania 34, left after WrestleMania 35, sounds like a similar deal where she'll be around until either the Rumble or WrestleMania in LA next year. WrestleMania next year would be my guess as far as the length of how long we'll see her. Question is, what is she doing at WrestleMania? Well, we know she's going to the main event, probably on night one. It came down to her and Charlotte Flair as the final two in the Women's Rumble match. And Ronda dumped Charlotte, which means she gets to pick the champion that she wants to challenge. Is it going to be Charlotte or is it going to be Becky Lynch? The belief, and Meltzer says it's going to be Charlotte and Ronda. That's the plan. Because bringing Ronda back, the idea is to put her on SmackDown. This is sort of a nice little gift that they're giving to Fox. Fox wants a big name, and it'll make them very happy to have Ronda Rousey on their show. So if Ronda's going to be on SmackDown, then she's going to be wrestling Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. And the good thing about that, if that's how this pans out, the good thing about her wrestling Charlotte is that they can still do Becky Lynch against Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. I would hate it if Bianca, much like Sasha, this appears to be what's happening with Sasha Banks, I would hate to see Bianca get iced out because Ronda decided to come back, and even though they had a plan that they were working towards, well, Ronda's the bigger star, and so, fuck you, you're on the side now. Bianca can still get her title match against Becky if Charlotte and Ronda have their match on the SmackDown side. Sasha Banks, speaking of Sasha, she made a surprise return on SmackDown Friday night, officially announced that she was going to be in the Women's Royal Rumble match. She was number 1 in the Rumble. She didn't last very long. I don't even think she lasted a full 10 minutes. And the way that they eliminated her from the match was so anticlimactic and so unbelievably stupid. I think it was Zelina Vega just kind of kicked her off the apron and she fell to the floor. It reminded me, even the way the elimination was done, it reminded me so much of what they did with Daniel Bryan in 2015. And I pointed out last night that image as Bryan is sitting on the floor after just falling to the ground. And you look up at the Titantron, Goldust is coming out next, and all it says is Shattered Dreams. Indeed. I cannot think of a more apropos image. But that's what this felt like. Even if she wasn't going to win, right? Because I said, if Ronda's in the Rumble, Ronda's going to win. There's no way she loses if she's in the Rumble match. I said that on Friday night. So if Ronda was going to be in, I didn't have any illusions about Sasha Banks winning or Bianca Belair winning the Royal Rumble. But to eliminate her in the way that they did and not keep her around at least until Charlotte got in the match is just completely ridiculous to me. Or have her do some fun stuff with Lita. This is supposed to be fun. Forget booking for a second. Forget booking and analyzing everything for a second, okay? This is supposed to be fun. If I were booking the Royal Rumble, I would look at it and go, okay, obviously I need to know what my plan is as far as WrestleMania, but just in a vacuum, one night in this Rumble, what are some of the fun interactions and fun spots that I can put together? Maybe there's two people that you would never expect to fight each other or interact with each other. We kind of got that with Brock and Matt Riddle briefly in the Men's Rumble. And I would try to figure that out and come up with some cool stuff. So maybe you do something with Sasha and Lita. Or, you had Mickie James in there, right? The Impact Knockouts champion. You do something with her and Sasha or her and Ronda or something like that. It just felt like to me they didn't bother trying to come up with a lot of stuff that would have been really fun. And some of these eliminations were just head-scratching. Sasha, they aired a video, by the way, a WrestleMania promo video with her. It was all about Sasha. It was a nice video, but you would watch that and you would think that she was absolutely in the plans for a title match with Charlotte at WrestleMania. And with Ronda coming back, it looks like they may have abandoned that plan. But they played, otherwise it's a very strange video for them to air. I think it illustrates how last minute all of this stuff came together, because I think the plan was for Sasha to probably win the Rumble and to go to Mania to challenge Charlotte. I think the one eliminating Charlotte at the end of this was going to be her. I thought the Women's Rumble was decent. It was more entertaining than the men's match, I can tell you that. I know that's a low bar to clear, but it was still better. And it had some little side stories. I appreciate that. You may not like the Naomi and Sonya Deville stuff, that it's continuing to drag on like this, but they played off that story. That was one of the little side stories of the match. It wasn't just Charlotte. Charlotte entering herself, that was a story unto itself. But you had other little ones like the Naomi and the Sonya Deville stuff. Naomi eliminating Sonya, Sonya staying out there and then eliminating Naomi a few minutes later. Of course, you had poor Cameron of the Funkadactyls making her return for one night. I'm sure she is going to cry herself to sleep that she had both Melina and Alicia Fox in the same Royal Rumble match as her, and she didn't get to interact with either one of them. Hopefully she got a picture and an autograph with them in the back. And lastly, I mentioned Mickie James. Mickie did come out with the Impact Knockouts title around her waist, which was a cool visual. She came out to her hardcore country song. She lasted a little while. She didn't get dumped out right away. In fact, I think she had a couple of eliminations, or at least one. But, it was what it was. I still feel like we're going to get the announcement of a Hall of Fame induction for her this year. Jimmy Smith on commentary referred to Michelle McCool as a WWE Hall of Famer at one point. And that's something to keep an eye out for, because I don't know that was a slip of the tongue and a mistake so much as it was a sign of what may be coming in the class of 2022. And I floated this on the stream last night. They're in Texas this year. And so it makes me wonder if both Undertaker and Michelle McCool might be going into the Hall of Fame together. Not as a package, but that they both might be part of the same Hall of Fame class this year. They are in Texas. Undertaker is a Texas boy, Texas Red. So it would not surprise me. But anyway, that's my autopsy on the Royal Rumble. The full review is up for your viewing pleasure. The more I think about that idea of making the Mania match a triple threat, and I'm going against my own rule even by saying this, but the idea of doing Lesnar, Reigns, and then working Seth Rollins into that match, as great as he's been lately, in the ring and the work he's been doing, and having Rollins maybe be the one to go over and end WrestleMania with the championship, is something I'm warming to. And ever since I brought that up last night on the stream, I am warming to the idea of maybe having that as the main event on night 2.